All right, welcome to Growing Together, a podcast of Central Presbyterian Church. This podcast is about learning to grow together as a family united to Jesus. So, in many ways, this podcast is not unlike being at a family dinner table, around a fire, or any other places families gather. So, welcome, take a seat, and let's get going. Well, thanks for joining us for another episode of Growing Together. We're excited to explore what makes Central central. I'm Cole Lescher, pastor of college and young adults, and with me is Matt Woodson, assistant director of student ministries.
Hello there.
Hi, Matt. With us as well is Pam Smith, who's in our communications department. Welcome, Pam.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, and joining us is possibly the best person I know, Cole Lescher, college and young adult pastor. So it's me. I get to talk.
We're so lucky we could get you to come in for this episode.
I know. I am just so highly sought after that it's just so difficult to get places.
Cole, you're also the best person that I know.
Oh, Matt, I wasn't going to cry today. But yeah, it's good to be with you. I feel like this was an arm twisting moment. I did not necessarily want to do this, but I also want people to know me, so I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, the whole first season has really been about kind of getting under the skin of Central and hearing about the different ministries, how they interact and interface with our mission and vision, and college and young adults is a big part of that. So it wouldn't be complete without you.
No, millennial population, Gen Z, is a slightly large part of our country and world these days. So it is important for us to do some of that work. But yeah.
Fun fact, we are all eating avocado toast while eating.
Yeah. Oh, man, I got an email today of one place is doing peach and goat cheese toast.
That sounds pretty good.
That sounds awful.
I'm on the fence about that.
Yeah.
I've actually never had avocado toast. I just don't really, toast is, okay.
I finally broke down and made it myself, like just a couple months ago. And I was like, I mean, it's fine, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, man. No. Avocados I can't do. It's both one texture. Texture is rough for me. I don't enjoy it. And it also is the color. It's just too, it's too, how do you say it without, mucusy.
I was going to say, yeah, there's some. If anyone isn't aware, avocado toast is like
mucus toast.
It's a type of food that millennials really like, and it's
overpriced.
Like it's very overpriced. It tastes okay, but it just kind of sums up the millennial experience in a lot of ways.
I feel like you have to do so much to it, though, to actually make it something. It's like you have to add seasonings, you need to add like egg or something. It's just like I said,
it sums up the millennial experience.
Yeah. So the moral of the story is us millennials are extra. We are just that. We are extra.
Yes.
So indeed.
It's all about us. Hand me a trophy right now.
I like trophies.
So, Cole, we get to actually turn around and ask you the questions.
Whoa.
Dum, dum, dum. So tell us a little bit about your story and how you wound up here in St. Louis.
So I always think about Clay's response to this was, I was born at a very young age. Yeah, it's always classic. But yeah, I'm originally from Knoxville, Tennessee, born and raised. I was there for 19 years. I was raised by two moms. I didn't have a father. I didn't grow up with a dad. So that was as a pretty significant part of my story and kind of navigating that. And now being a father of two crazy, wonderful, beautiful little kids is kind of this really cool, redemptive piece of my story. It's also incredibly terrifying as well. A lot of prayer and reliance on the Lord.
I think every parent experiences
that. Yeah, I'd say so. But yeah, so I was from Knoxville. My mom had me pretty young. It was kind of a surprise to some extent. And I grew up at first kind of in a kind of lower middle class side of Knoxville, and then eventually moved out west, which is more middle-ish class, but a lot of country, not super diverse areas. I guess maybe this encapsulates my high school experience. I would wake up early and go fishing and be late to school if fishing was good. So that was my life.
I mean, that's kind of epic. But
I mean, my teachers had my cell phone number and would call me and be like, Cole, I know it's overcast today, and I know they're biting probably pretty well, but you got to test. Like, you got to test. Like, you have to graduate. And so that was definitely my senior year, but it was part of a lot of my schooling. But I played football in high school. I loved it. It's good anger management for a young child. But I grew up playing basketball. I love basketball with all my heart. It's one of my favorite sports. And so pretty active kid, just did all sorts of things. My family was great. They kind of let me experience a ton of different types of sports, a ton of different type of things. The church, however, was not a part of our story for various reasons. It was kind of the boogeyman in many ways in our family. And so when I became a Christian, that was very confusing to some extent, especially in the sense of where I inhabit that part of Christianity as well. But I came to faith in high school. My youth pastor, who actually, shameless plug, he's episode like 4 on my podcast, Everyday Hospitality, no big deal. But my youth pastor was a coach on the football team. He was a wide receiver coach. He was not my coach. I was a lineman. I was a slightly larger than the average wide receiver. And so, yeah, invited me to church, and I was like, man, I don't know about this. We'll see. And eventually invited me to a beach camp. And I was like, well, a beach and free trip, and people are paying for it. I think this is great. And my mom, I think wisely to some extent, wouldn't let me go because it was, I don't know these people. Why am I going to let you go on this trip? Like, I don't know what's going to happen to you. And so a friend comes back from that trip, though, on fire for Jesus, you know, the typical going to a conference or whatever, and he's just telling me about Jesus nonstop, and I'm just like, dude, all right, cool. Invites me to church. I go that night, mainly because there was food and girls. That was the thing. And heard the gospel for the first time, and it was utterly perplexing. And I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I couldn't stop being both incredibly burdened by it, but also incredibly scared and incredibly angry. I mean, it was all the feelings, all the emotions of it. I just couldn't. The weight of not being able to save myself or my family or anything, and having to rely on this God, in many ways, back to the daddy issues to some extent, is back to saying, you know, a God the Father. My representation of that is just not real hot at that point. Yeah. And so it was a lot to process. But one of the coolest parts of my story, and actually what eventually led me into ministry, was the way in which this youth pastor and others have just walked with me. They didn't pretend to be better than me. I mean, in many ways, they knew way more than me in a whole host of different ways. But, like, they didn't pretend that they were better. They didn't pretend that they were smarter or whatever. They just, like, walked with me. They were patient with me. They were, oh, man. If I have an ounce of patience that they showed me during my probably hostile questions on a regular basis, I would be a really good pastor. And so, yeah, so I came to faith in high school. It was, I guess, early 2000s. So it was an interesting time. You know, evangelicalism has its ebb and flows, and its CCM and fun times in music and all of that. I felt a call to ministry pretty early, about 17. I was like, I think I want to do ministry. But I also was really bad at school for some different reasons, some cognitively and then some lazily is probably a good word. But, yeah, so I didn't know if I was going to go to college. I was like, I don't want to go to college, so maybe I'll go on the mission field, and that's what I thought I was going to do. And then that didn't work out, and I was like, all right, what am I going to do? Work construction for a little bit. Realized I didn't want to work construction. I was going to go to college. And, yeah, so I went to college, and that took a long time. It was like almost 6.5 years I was in college. I worked full-time in college, so 50 hours a week or so, especially for the first 3 or 4 years of it. I've held many a job in my day. One of the longest jobs I've had was I worked at Texas Roadhouse for, close to 10 to 12 years in all, if you come back to the second tour that I made later in college. I did everything from wash dishes to I was an apprentice butcher there, meat cutter. And so I cut the meat, grilled the meat, all the fun stuff. So I know lots of random anecdotes about all that life.
Well, that's probably where you get a lot of your great cooking skills.
Yeah, I do love to cook. And this is a whole nother story, too, of the interesting part about ministry and I'm rambling to some extent, but I feel like you find yourself doing ministry where you are far more than you think you do if you just open your eyes to what God is doing. And like a lot of my time in college was me sitting in a meat locker or standing in a meat locker cutting 400 or 500 pounds of meat, right? Pounds of ribeye and sirloin and all this stuff, and having a coworker sit in there and basically use this below 30-degree meat locker as a counseling session, coming in and talking to me about how they relate to their daughter, or how do they relate to their son, how do they, tell me about this, or tell me more about why you go to church, or all these things. And I found myself doing that more and more foundationally going, I think ministry is what I want to do. I mean, I could do ministry anywhere, clearly,
right. Yes.
But I think this is something that I'm called to. In all of that roundabout story, I was going to go to seminary. Originally, I was in the Baptist tradition. I was going to go to the Baptist seminary, and some things happened in the Baptist world at the time that I was not real keen on, and said, I got to go somewhere else. In comes the youth pastor again, who actually did a THM at Covenant.
Oh, wow.
Randomly. I don't even know how he got here, but he did it, right? I had visited before, and I came and visited again and sat under a professor named Jaron Bars, which some of the listeners might know. He is by far like the sweetest, gentlest British man you've ever known. Not anything like Roy Kent from Ted Lasso. He's like the exact opposite of Roy Kent.
Now you put that image in my mind.
You're welcome, first of all. So I sat under that, and I looked over at Kirk while we were visiting. So we were engaged at the time, and I just looked at her and I said, so how you feel about St. Louis? Because I want to sit under this man. And that's what I did. My wife and I met in college. Kirk, shout out. Yeah, we met in college. We dated all 4 years, aside from a little pause moment in the summer, which that's a story to tell another time. But part of a campus ministry there. Another story, once again, of a pastor just kind of walking with me and talking with me and being patient with me and training me and loving me and caring for me. Oh, man. I can't tell you ministry-wise how important that is. If you don't have people in your life walking with you and kind of embodying the faith in front of you, you're doing it wrong. Like, you're not there yet. Like, you need people. We need each other, and we need people like that. And for me, that part of my story was just like fundamental. And yeah, all of these guys were just really amazing for me. Yeah, came to seminary. First year of seminary, this is really long. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. This
like
is
I need
what we want. We want people to feel like they sat down at a table and had coffee with you and got to hear your story.
Yeah, instead of having a coffee and me talking the whole time. But anyways, so I came to St. Louis. First year I was here, I actually worked at Westminster.
Nice.
Before Westminster actually opened, I was one of the first janitors to come in and do stuff with a cleaning company. So I cleaned floors. I was really bad at it. I'm not a detail-oriented guy, as probably everyone who ever knows me knows that. Just not a huge, I'm much more big picture vision guy. And so that didn't last super long. I ended up transitioning to go work at the seminary, and I was cleaning toilets, which was a great, humbling experience before ministry. It is, yeah.
I think one of our professors at one point said that everyone in ministry should clean toilets at one point in their life.
Yep. Apparently I took that to heart and did that.
Yep.
And then in that, I met a guy by the name of Jeremy Blythe randomly, which is a whole different story. That's really funny how that kind of came about. And he said, hey, would you be interested? He had just taken the student director job here at Central and said, hey, would you be interested in coming and working? And so I said no twice, I think. I said twice no. And then it just seemed like it was a good idea. It was half support raised, which if you know anything about me, once again, details also support raising was not super great. So functionally I worked for half a salary for a while because I couldn't raise any money. But yeah, that's how I got here. I got hired as the middle school intern. That's how it started.
Wow.
That was in 2012.
Okay.
That was summer 2012. So I've been here a little minute.
Coming up on 10 years.
Coming up on 10 years, yeah. That's functionally how we got to St. Louis in many ways. It was not a place that we originally thought we would be in. but we've grown to love it, the whole family. I also have 2 sons named Jude and Owen, who are 6 and 3, who just
I can't believe they're that old already.
I know.
Yeah.
I can't either, actually.
Well, yeah, I bet.
Yeah. I mean, and Owen is like, just to watch the personalities of these kids grow up, oh gosh, it's been a delight. And that's also why I have no hair.
So what about St. Louis do you actually like?
That's a good question. Yeah. Not emos. So let's just set the record straight.
All right, well, that's
Hot
been that
take.
for the podcast.
Emos is the worst.
Thank you for joining us.
I have offended a significant subsection of our population. Best pizza in town? Blackthorn.
You're not wrong with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Second best pizza in town? Motor City, Detroit style pizza. So not anything St. Louis apparently.
Where's that?
That's over by Rebel Kitchen.
Okay.
It's over there
Pretty
by
close.
it's right down the road. No, right next to Miley. Anywho, I love pizza. I can't really eat it like I used to, but I do love it indeed. What was the question you asked?
What do you like about St. Louis? And you
That's
immediately
it,
went to
yeah.
food.
And I immediately went to food.
The food you don't like.
Yeah, the food I
that's
don't
right.
like. You know, I was thinking about this question earlier because I assumed it would be asked. The easy answer to that, I love the free stuff. I love the kind of atmosphere to be able to just to go outside and to do things. The zoo is amazing. I worked at a zoo in college, which is also a fun fact. And this one is like 4,000 times bigger and better and less sketch. And so, like, it's amazing to be able to go there for free and just walk around. And my kids love it, and I really enjoy it. And the museums. And, I mean, there's just so much to do. But I'd say if I were to really to think like a little bit more under the surface a little bit, is the history of St. Louis is just fascinating to me. The warts of it and the beauty of it, it both gives me some lament factors about how life has gone on in St. Louis, but then also this kind of weird optimistic hope that it's not always going to be that way. And so we get to see the hardships that exist in our history. And I'll even say like I feel like a part of the city, right? Like I feel like this is our home, right? Like, and so there's a lot to do,
Yes.
but it's a lot of good work to do, right? And so I love the architecture, just the history of it's just so much. It's just unique. It has its own kind of unique flavor. And being a Southerner, it was a good transition to the Midwest because it wasn't like out of nowhere, like, what in the world is this place? Oh, so.
You're not too far afield.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually interesting that you say that, specifically that you talked about the history, because, St. Louis is kind of this convergence between, north and south, east and west. It's all about like this, quite literally, building bridges, between the Mississippi and Missouri and whatnot. And I think that kind of makes sense for you because I know this is a cheesy metaphor, but like you're actually one of the best bridge builders I've ever met. Like you know how to encounter a lot of different type of people and immediately kind of know their context and care for them in the midst of that. And then, the bridge being Jesus, like showing them that. You show that in a really nuanced but yet powerful way.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree. We like you is what we're saying.
Oh,
we
good.
think you're awesome.
Oh, shucks. Yeah, I think that the ability to work with people who are different than you is immense here.
Yes.
I mean, there's just the population, whether it's, African-American conversations or surrounding African-American life and how we can build bridges to care and to love, and kind of like what we're doing with Friendly Temple in a lot of ways. I've created a really great friendship with Mike Jones at Friendly, and it's just been incredible. But with like a large immigrant population, we have refugee population, there's just so much beauty and tapestry that is to be had here, and so many opportunities for bridge building and peacemaking, which is difficult. It's difficult work. I was thinking about this the other day in regards to bridge building, that it's, in order to do that well, you kind of have to have this this weird understanding that you needed a bridge built for you.
Yeah.
And there was a divide for you, and I don't mean the old school like crew or InterVarsity kind of like build, draw a cross and the bridge is Jesus, which is true. It's a great metaphor for a lot of people and conversation starter. But just the fact that when we know the things that divide even our own selves and our own communities and stuff, that it's good to come from a foundation that someone came for me, that someone has built bridges for me. And obviously the easiest, most beautiful example of that is Jesus, right? Like we see that, but it, you know, it could also be someone in your family, it could be someone in your church, it could be a neighbor. We just, we all we got is what propaganda would say. So we should take care of one another that we have. So.
Yeah. Well, so starting out as the middle school intern, all the way to becoming ordained pastor, what has that been like to navigate? Because you've had a variety of roles here over the years.
Yeah, that middle
It's
school.
quite a trajectory.
Yeah, the middle school internship did not last soups long. Letting you know that.
The kids aren't saying that anymore.
No, they're not saying soups. I like soups. But it was a year. There's kind of been this really cool sovereign play out of my time here. I've had this really awesome opportunity to walk and to grow with the kids that I've been working with. And what I mean by that is, so I started doing middle school ministry. I did that for a year, moved into high school ministry. Those 8th graders that year in middle school moved up to high school, so I got to hang out with them for the trajectory of their entirety of their high school experience. And then I moved to college ministry, where I had them in college. And now I have them in their emerging adulthood or their young adulthood or whatever. And like, I think that's where I'll stop. But like,
And then they're 85.
so, they need to know how to walk on their own at some point. But no. But it's been beautiful to go from student to peer.
Yes.
Has been one of the coolest journeys that I've gotten to walk with some of these guys. Like, I have a growth group of dudes who I've walked with since they were in high school, maybe some of them in middle school. And man, there's something to be said about that. That's just really great. And I think, you know, they sometimes don't know how enriching it is just for me to be able to have that kind of life and to be able to watch. Like, I think youth pastor and college, like, I really think my job has been some of the coolest ways in which to see transformation. Because we've got kids in ministry now. We've got kids, doing incredible work in engineering. And we got kids doing incredible teaching work. Like, I'm watching them grow up and grow up in the Lord. Like, it's just great. And so all of the fears that exist, which aren't bad, I mean, they exist. Like, what about the next generation? What about this? And there's a lot to work to be done. There's no doubt about that. But I've actually seen a lot of the beauty, the fact that our kids are doing that. Like, they are who they are, watching them grow and learn. And yeah. And so, and so the journey was interesting. I was then a high school intern. Then I was basically the version of Ben's job. I was kind of the student ministry version of that job. And then moved to college, pastor, and did campus ministry for about 4 years, I think, which was great. COVID kind of made a pivot happen recently. And so now the pastor of college and young adult, which has also been really cool and encouraging to create a space and a home for people who are looking for a home. Like, it's great. But yeah, the ordination process took a little minute. But it's a blessing to be a pastor. I don't know how many people describe it this way, but to be a pastor at a church takes a church believing in you to be able to do that, especially a calling pastor in regards to like your ordination. And so Central and I have had a relationship now for 9 years, whether some of them knew it or not. So there's that reality. Most of the young kids knew, and some didn't. But it is a body, a family that says, no, we want you to help lead part of our family. And I don't take that lightly or for granted. I think it's a wonderful and beautiful opportunity to be able to do that. And no shade to anybody else, I think I have one of the most important jobs. And for them to trust me in that, I think it's humbling.
Yeah.
Well, in a lot of ways, you're just embodying what you talked about at the beginning of your story. You're embodying that felt presence of Jesus. Those people are just being cared for by you.
Yeah.
Well, before we dig too much into the why behind your job and sort of what that looks like, I want to ask, what has it been like to sort of see this process actually turn into something that people can listen to. Also, you can listen to Cole's podcast, Everyday Hospitality, available where all good podcasts can be subscribed to.
Are we going to bring back plugging Randy Mayfield's stuff too?
And you can check out Randy Mayfield's book, One Life. Shout out to Randy.
Yeah.
I'll frame it this way. COVID has been a dream killer for a lot of people. It really has. And it's been really hard. And nobody plays that down. Like it's just the case. You know, some of us experienced it more than others, and it's been a lot. And I think what's been interesting through that is you kind of went on this emotional roller coaster, emotional journey of basically like reading Job and Ecclesiastes. I read a tweet today. It was like me being depressed, me reading Ecclesiastes, me being depressed biblically. Like that was, we just kind of like, we ebb and flow in this. And I think there was a lot of, oh man, what is life going to be like? What are we going to do? And there was a moment last year where I was coming out of that, oh, this is the worst, and going, all right, what can we do? You know, what are the things that we do? And I've been doing a podcast for a while. I did a podcast really just to kind of create an outlet to get more. Hospitality to me has been one of the most transformative experiences in my life. And I think the Bible has a lot to say about hospitality. At some point, you'll probably hear me preach, teach, whatever on it, because it's just so integral to what I think is ministry. But what was interesting is I love that medium of a podcast. I love that. But the year was, what can we do? Like, what are the things that we can do? And so one of the ideas was to throw out artwork on the street, right? That we did the Stations of the Cross. And I'm thinking, there's no way I could get this done. Jared helped me build a lot of them, actually designed them so I could build them, which was probably the most important part of it, because otherwise it'd be like weird, like MC Escher type of build. But we put them out there, and we put QR codes, and people walked around and saw them and interacted with them, and it was incredible. It was just an idea, right? I didn't do the art. I bought it from somebody else. It was just really great. And so we just kept having these idea wins, right? Like these things that were happening, and podcast was another idea of going, man, we're asking why a lot. And I think in good ways. Mm-hmm. I think why is probably one of the most important questions that we can ask. And I think for a lot of folks, especially in conversations about creating belonging and different things like that, knowing why we do something, it matters so much.
Yeah.
And this podcast in particular, especially the first season, has been about that. It's been about, why do we do what we do? First of all, and some of it is introducing people you never even met before, or even didn't even know they worked here, didn't even know what they did. And there's that. There's a truth to that, and I think there's important to get that out. But also, it's why, you know, what do we exist for? Why are we a church?
Right.
Like, what do we do? And I think we get to answer that. And I think Clay set that off really well in the beginning, saying this is what we are. I appreciate his leadership so much, because he really is just casting this vision of belonging and who we are as a church and where we're going, what we're doing. And each of our leaders are just awesome. I think we're a very lucky church in regards to our leadership. Yeah, so this podcast was that way. It's new for us. We don't have podcasts necessarily. We have a sermon podcast, shout out, shameless plug, where all podcasts are found. You can go check Clay's sermons out. Honestly, that's been the church's MO, not just ours, but most churches' MO is we're going to send out basically the sermons to the world, which is awesome. I mean, because we were doing it beforehand with like CDs or tapes or whatever, right? That was this thing.
Shout out to Tape Ministries.
Yeah, shout out to Tape Ministries.
I like how you talked about those early other forms of media. You go all the way back to, the Gutenberg printing press and stuff like that. Obviously, the first thing that was used on that printing press was the Bible. One of the great things about Christianity is it's a religion of the book, right? It's all about how to speak that message and using the different types of mediums that are available and using them effectively to the people that you're talking to.
Yeah. We get the opportunity to do that. I think people don't understand, man, we're about to go on this super good tangent, but I don't think people understand how just incredible our scriptures are. How it's been used, how it's helped people learn to read, because it's been used to help people, to teach people to read, how transformative it's been to create societies that are just, that are whatever. Like, sometimes we don't think about the beauty in that, and that is a medium, like that is a means. And so The hope was that this could be a medium for people to engage a little bit deeper in, especially for those of us who felt, especially in this season, a bit disconnected and separate. And I was hoping that we could create something that could reach people where they are. Yeah, they could share it, cool. But it is very in-house in some sense. Like, it's not one of those, we're not throwing it out to the masses to go, all right, now we need 14 million followers and da-da-da-da. Like,
I mean, it'd be great if we got that.
be dope. Yeah, shameless plug for 14 million followers. Cristiano Ronaldo, hit me up. If you don't know,
We'll get some sponsorships at that point.
Yeah, if you don't know, Ronaldo has like a bajillion followers. He just hit like 1 billion, I think. Yeah, so that was the vision behind this. And I'm grateful for the leadership of our church that had faith in doing something like this.
Yes.
I'm all about trying new stuff. That's really nerve-wracking for some people, and I completely understand that. And I'm grateful that we can do that. Because I think the millennial generation and the Z-Gen, and even the next one, the Y? No.
We're not sure yet.
Alpha.
Alpha, maybe?
That's what it is, whatever generations mean. These are the means in which they live in.
Yes.
We can hate on TikTok all we want, but there is a lot of people on TikTok.
Yes.
I'm actually meeting with a kid in the city who is a Christian TikTok influencer. So he's leading Bible studies and stuff like that on TikTok. That's his means. And then somebody asked if I would help walk with him and mentor him through doing this well, actually bridge building in those audiences, because it can be such a vitriol, hard place to be. And I'm like, absolutely, let's do this. I was like, I'm not going to do a TikTok because that's embarrassing for a 34-year-old man to do. But yeah.
Well, before we transition into the job questions and really get to that, I do want to get some recommendations. Sometimes we've asked people, what Google search history would tell us about them or targeted ads, but I really feel like for Cole, the questions are either something coffee related or what are the last 3 podcasts you listened to? So you can take your pick there, or you can answer both, if you really feel like sharing.
Yeah, I mean, the coffee's quick.
Keurig, right?
I really like Folgers. No, please don't do that to me.
But Folgers, we will take your sponsorship
Folgers.
if you...
It's Folgers in your cup. Man, but I tell you what, those commercials were iconic.
They were.
Best part of waking up.
Right? Somebody was making the money. Anyways, during the pandemic, I have discovered the beauty in buying bulk.
Yeah?
So I have been buying 5 pounds of coffee each time. So Coma Coffee down the road from us is a great coffee joint. They have good coffee. And then Caldi's, of course, I've been ordering by the truckloads. So you'll always find me with some sort of coffee contraption because, I got to make it happen. So,
Right.
But also don't hear that I'm like a snob to some extent, because I do use Splenda and sometimes creamer. So I'm not the purist that others are. So I'll stop talking about coffee. So podcasts, there are a lot of good ones. I think with podcasts, just like any other social media stuff, discernment is really important. If you're going to hear anything about podcasts or anything about your engagement of social anything, discernment is really important. Know what you can listen to and what you can't listen to, because it will influence you in some capacity.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's what they're trying to do. And so the fun ones I listen to are soccer ones. So Raj and them, Men in Blazers. You don't probably need to listen to that one. But I love soccer now. I didn't back in the day, but shout out to Nathan Burgess for making me love soccer.
Are you going to get tickets for St. Louis Soccer Club?
Yeah, I may or may not have already been in talks with some folks
Nice.
about the St. Louis City SC. Although, if they're listening to this, which they won't be, please get some gear out, because right now it's not quite up to par. But yeah, so that's kind of fun time listening. I love storytelling. I really love, this is funny, I love like fairy tales told in kind of modern ways.
Yeah.
Or like campfire stories, right?
Nice.
So lore is a really good one that I enjoy. Oh, mythical.
Good Mythical Morning?
Good Mythical Morning. No, that's a show. Also not recommended, but hilarious. Yeah. Anyways, it go through like different stories. You'll learn things like the story of Zeus and stuff like that. So once again, discernment. And then the rise and fall of Mars Hill recently has been kind of this cultural thing. There's a lot of opinions and a lot of feels about it, but there are feels about it for a reason. And so it bears talking about. One of our reading groups coming up, we're going to go through Cosper's, one of his books, but then part of it's also going to talk about the Marcel podcast too,
Cool.
which is exciting. So if you want to talk more about that, holler. But that one, Holy Post is a good one. I love Phil Vischer, Baker of VeggieTales guy. Some podcasts make people angry, some don't. Just welcome to the social media mediums, right?
Everything on the internet.
Yeah, everything on the internet is either like, well, everybody hates something.
Yes.
Everybody hates something you love on the internet. So, anyways.
I don't know if you've ever heard of how he created Bob the Tomato, but Bob the Tomato is actually kind of like his personality.
Oh, yeah.
Where he says he wants to be like Mr. Rogers, but like Mr. Rogers if he was a jerk. In the kindest way possible. Well, that sounds kind of weird.
Yeah. Those are a few. I listen to podcasts most days, or audiobooks. I really love audiobooks. So.
Yeah. So, college young adults, obviously college ministry looks very different at the moment than it has.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about what that ministry looks like. What does the college portion look like as a campus minister and working with universities? And then what does it look like to do young adult ministry here at Central?
Yeah, we're learning a lot. College ministry is interesting at this point in general because the campuses have been more open, which is great. There are still some restrictions, which is fine. I mean, they're just trying to take care of the people they have, and I really appreciate that. And so we're kind of pivoting to some extent. Instead of being like a campus ministry that is the place where you go, we're actually trying to drive people to the church and to be resources to the campus. So in a couple weeks, we start in October, I don't know when this release, on October 13th of this year, we are doing a class with John Anazu, going through his book, Uncommon Ground. And it's a moment for us to resource the university. So they're coming to get free food. Food's always going to matter for college students in general. So you just create a place, an avenue for free food, and you got it. But you have food, and then you go have this Q&A conversation with John and us and talk through this book. So we're going to do that as much as possible. Partner with campus ministries, not compete. And I think that's huge.
Yes.
One of the things I learned on campus was that we compete way too much for people. The population where I was at WashU, it seemed to be like 2.5% of the population was Christian, and everybody was fighting over that 2.5%. And at the end of the day, it's like, actually, how can we help each other? How can we resource each other? Yeah, that's what we're doing. I still am involved on campus in the sense of I do stuff with Interfaith Committee. I'll speak on campus occasionally at different campus ministries. I'm going to, like, in a couple weeks to another one. I get asked to do retreats and stuff there. And so we're still a relationship with the campus, but trying to resource it just as much as anything else. I always said when I took that job, I said, I want to be a pastor to Washington University. Not just one at, but like two, WashU. Mm-hmm. And I said that when they transitioned me into that role. And I think this is still a way that we can do that and stay true to that. Young adult ministry is interesting because in many ways we're trying to grow people up to be a part of the greater church and be able to rub shoulders with folks of all ages. And that can be really difficult with just age and stage of it all. Mm-hmm. The transition from college graduate to life after college can be a really brutal one.
Yeah.
It can be really lonely and scary, and I think Central is in a prime place to be able to be a home for people like that. I remember when Centene built their huge thing down the road, I just kept saying, man, I hope they come to Central because I feel like they could find a home here, feel like we could take care of people well. One of the pros we have is we have folks who've been walking with Jesus for 60 years.
Yes.
Like, there's not a lot of places that can say that and utilize that as a resource. Sometimes young people have to get like coaxed into that. Usually they think that's not cool, but when you're kind of on your own and you need people, it's a great resource and a beautiful one to have. Just like anything else, we do a lot of hangout. We have a Sunday school. I love our Sunday school. We're called Young Adult and Friends currently. We're thinking about a name change, obviously. But we have folks who come that aren't kind of in the, quote, young adult bracket, mainly because we're trying to create a family, not a subset necessarily. And I'm really appreciative of them coming because they get to kind of teach us more and help learn with us, reading groups and all sorts of stuff. But our big thing is our mission of connect, grow, serve, some of the values we have here. And I've taken those to heart and kind of like structured our ministry around that. So I have a team that is all about connection and hospitality and trying to get people together. I have a team that's all about what does it look like to grow together? What ways can we get people, put them in front of places of growth? And then we have serve. And I have the privilege of being on the emissions team with Ben and Jen and Kate and whoever is coming next with us. And we also get to help resource people to go serve our community, which is a huge thing for our people, for our young adult population, is they want to know, cool, the gospel, great. What do I do with it?
Yeah.
And we get to do that. We get to put feet on it, hands and feet. So that's what we do. We're connecting, growing, serving. In that, we're finding the identity of who they are. We're finding where they belong and what they're supposed to do. And those are the three questions that everybody's asking anyways, is
Yep.
Who am I? Who are my friends? Where's my family? And what am I supposed to do here? So those are the questions we're trying to help walk alongside them to answer, to be present in it and answer it. So hopefully that gives you a little glimpse. Once again, big picture vision guy. So if you want the details of that, good
Come
luck.
hang out with him.
Come hang out,
Right,
and
yes.
might drop some occasionally. So,
I love that.
yeah.
So, in the time that you've been here at Central, what has encouraged you and what excites you about the future here at Central?
I think the most encouraging thing for me has been the times in which we've rallied around one another in times of hardship and in times of need. And there's been a fair amount of them over the years, but I also, even just current ones with COVID. And one of the coolest things was to watch how the ministry was being created to take care of one another. Part of Charles's job was just to create spaces where people are cared for, which I think is really, really cool. So I found that to be really great. There's an encouragement in diversity that we're doing. We're trying to reach folks and trying to be with folks who might not think the same, be the same, act the same. We really are a family, even in our differences, which has growing pains for everybody, but I think it's good that we pursue that. I don't know, man. There's just some air about what's right now. There are people just excited about what we're doing and who we are.
Yeah.
And that encourages me. And so, what was the other part of that question, though?
What excites you about the future?
Oh, what excites about the future? Man, this might sound really stressful for everyone else because we don't know. It's not mapped out. We as human beings love to map out every detail of the future. But this new abnormal, normal, weird thing that we are in, right, is a chance for God to lead in front of us opposed to us make plans and him laugh. And it gives us a chance to go, all right, God, what are you doing here? What are you trying to do in the midst of us? What are you changing in us? What work are you going to do? To me, that's terrifying, but also really takes the burden off to some extent as well. Yeah, maybe that's it, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, as someone who also likes to see us try new things, I think the not knowing can be scary, but it's also essentially one big opportunity because things are going to unfold in unexpected ways. And each one of those you could see as a setback or a challenge or a thing we have to overcome, but it's also a new way to do ministry, and it's a new way to reach people, and it's a new way to connect with them. So it's a very exciting thing. I think COVID has been interesting in that respect because I think to your point earlier, it was really hard at the beginning to feel like it was a little bit of a dream crusher. All of these things that we can't do, and but to see people find ways through that and overcome it and continue to do ministry and continue to grow, that's been great to see.
Yeah. The beauty and resiliency is, I'm very into the common beauty of things, because if I think too much of big grandiose things, I start to feel guilty, and it never really lives up to those standards. But just the fight that I've seen people have in a lot of different ways, the resiliency, watching people do their thing, being who they are, I just thought it's really encouraging. And there is just a sense of collaboration and community here that has probably been felt before. I've only been here 9 years. And honestly, in the drop of a hat for 175 of our church's years. But yeah, it's just encouraging to see where we're going.
Well, it's a testament that God is actually at work, that resiliency, because all the data should show that this isn't going to work. But there actually is a miracle that God actually is at work, that he is extending that grace.
Yeah.
So should we do lightning round of Ted Lasso quotes?
Oh, man. Yeah.
I had to work it in somewhere.
It'd be so good. Be a goldfish.
Happiest animals are goldfish.
Yep. Oh man, it's another one of those discernment moments. Be discerning and watching things.
Well, it's been really fun
Yeah.
to walk through this season with you
Yeah.
and to work on this project alongside you. And Matt, you got drug along. Thank you for that.
I had fun being drug along.
It was good. It was a good group, and it was fun to see all of the interviews unfold.
Yep.
So thank you for being the capstone, the final episode, and our first, hopefully not last,
Yeah.
season.
It's good to be here. I'm glad
right.
to do it.
And hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks for being with us today. It's good to be together. If you want to find out more about Central Pres, please go to our website at centralpres.com or find us on all the social media things with the handle at CPCSTL. Join us next time as we continue to learn and grow together into the family of God. Blessings, friends.